Stop the cap.
Damn, I'm getting just way behind when it comes to these videos, man. Like, just uploading them. I totally forget topics I talked about. I keep saying that, you know. But right now, I've just been super busy. But I wanted to talk a little bit about the whole election. And I'm going to take things in a different direction than what everybody else has been saying. There's certain times where, I want to make a video or speak on it, and then, other people pretty much say what I'm already going to say, or they beat me to the punch of making a video and they pretty much say what I'm going to say. So it's like no point in me repeating it. There's kind of like a time sensitivity when it comes to making vids. And if somebody else already said it, I'm like, well, I don't want to sound like I'm a beat biter, even though that's what I was thinking in my own head, because to, I guess, some of the more intelligent people, these things are obvious, right? But looking at the election, Project 2025 has essentially split the Republican vote. I think that at this point, I do think that Kamala Harris is likely going to be president of the United States, most likely. There's too many people that don't like what, just Trump and his off the cuff approach to everything, doesn't want to read briefings. But, Kamala Harris is a part of she's a part of the deep state. Just plain and simple. The government, it's really not about the president. The government has handlers. Even Vladimir Putin, has pointed this out. And it's 100% true. Like when you have people who, like Henry Kissinger, when you have people that are behind the scenes and serving underneath multiple presidents, that's the deep state. These people have handlers. Like, you think Joe Biden is running the country right now? Joe Biden is not running the country right now. It's most likely Obama. And, obviously, the shadow people. And the shadow people are the people that throw their money around at the politicians, including AIPAC, which is why you get people that come up with all these conspiracy theories about the little hats and how the little hats control the world. And it's dumb at this point for them to deny it and call it anti-Semitism when, again, the American political system is as such to where basically you can buy elections. You can, you throw money at the candidate that you want to win, and the more money you throw at them, the higher the chances are they're going to win, just because of notoriety, advertisements, because the American people are stupid and simple-minded, and that's just how it works. And then you got the whole military industrial complex catering to Israel, because there's so many people on the back end that get to make money off of that. If it's like not, Nancy Pelosi and all her stocks and Northrop Grumman and, freaking Raytheon and Lockheed Martin and all these companies, Boeing and whatnot, that's how they make their money. So you have the prison industrial complex that Dwight Eisenhower warned about, that everybody just ignored and not paying attention to, and then you have basically the United States beholden to Israel, and Israel's about to drag, America into, World War III or some sort of global conflict, right? Then you got the conflict, with Ukraine and Russia. Then you have the conflict, the potential conflict with, China and Taiwan. And America is supposed to be policing all of that, and really doesn't have, the manpower. As I've said it before, young white men especially don't have anything to fight for. Black men been not had anything to fight for. But this is the first time where, economically speaking, white men are being affected in the exact same way that black men have been affected, economically speaking. I don't know who thought all this shit was a good idea, but, like I said, once you get into men can't, play the patriarchal role, provide a lifestyle, and they're not given any sort of title, position, recognition, reward, right? Any sort of deference, they're not going to fight for you. They're not going to go out there and sacrifice their lives to not be the breadwinner. That's just not going to happen. Obviously, the women, they're running around with their feminist position. But anyway, I'm getting long-winded and getting into all these other topics. But the Democratic Party has basically, split the vote. And this is something that Captain Solo has warned about when it comes to ostracizing people. And when you look at the White Manosphere, right, eventually you kick so many people out of the room, you kick so many women out, right? Like, I mean, if you just think of like the whatever podcast, or Fresh and Fit, or any of these other, white podcasts, or Tether podcasts, let's call them that. They always go to the, extreme, this whole, manosphere. And I'm not talking about the black manosphere, because we've had these problems, and you can go find video clips from the 1970s where black people are literally talking about the exact same things that we've been talking about the issue of, black men, and is it a matriarchy, is it not? That all started with Patrick Moynihan in 1965. Okay, and there's plenty of literature. I mean, he just kicked it off. He just dropped a grenade in the black community and walked out the room. And they've been questioning whether the black community is a matriarchy, talked about the welfare state, the man's not making enough money, and then the women, the feminism comes in, oh, he's strong, independent, we don't need no man, all this sort of stuff. And what was I saying? And, now the white community is going through, that, and it's a blame game, in the white community. And so what you see is a lot of white men on these podcasts, and they say the same thing. Oh, she's disqualified because she's not a Christian, and she doesn't, have the sweet twinkle of Christ in her eye. Oh, she's got too many bodies. If she's not a single mom, she's got too many bodies. That's how they cover that. Right. Then you got, she's too fat. She's too unattractive. She's got flabby arms. She's hit the wall. Right. You just start discriminating. She's a member of the LGBTQ. She's too woke. She cares about world hunger too much and save the whales. Fuck that bitch. Right. So you start doing all that. And then you throw in the fact that, the side that they don't want to talk about, which is, again, Leisure Miller said it point blank. You got white men that, they can't play the patriarchal role. They can't provide for a family. It's crazy how, Al Bundy and Homer Simpson were the butt of the joke, the biggest butt of, male joke, in terms of, being a man. I mean, that they were the face of not being successful. Homer Simpson was the face of not being successful. Al Bundy, the face of not being successful, right? He was in a shoe store, always, putting shoes on the feet of fat women, and in the whole show ripping the fat. I mean, it's stuff that today would never be tolerated because of woke culture. Like when you listen, Al Bundy in the basement with his group No Ma'am t-shirts and whatnot. Like, I mean, just all type of stuff. And what's so crazy? It's like, what man today wouldn't want Al Bundy's life, right? Like his wife, Peggy and whatnot. What used to kill me is, when you look at her, even go back and pull up clips of, Al Bundy's wife on the show and whatnot. I don't know about y'all, but I always thought that was a fairly decent looking white woman, had a shape, granted the clothes were rather eccentric, but I thought she looked good. I was like, hey, but, Al Bundy, the character, he would act like it was torture for him to have sex with his wife. Like, it was just absolute torture. And I'm sitting there, I'm like as though he's having sex with some just whale. But I get it. After a while, guys, tend to lose, the fire, within relationships dies for both men and women. I get that. I get it. But still, like, it was meant to be comedy, but like not a bad looking woman, but that was the face of not being successful. But who wouldn't want that now? Owned a home, has 2 children, has a stay-at-home wife, right? And it's funny because, like, the money doesn't really add up. Like, Al, did you own the shoe store? Or were you just an employee at the shoe store? Because even back then, I doubt an employee at a shoe store, like Payless, would make enough money to own a home. I don't know. But what was I going to say about the whole situation? Yeah. So anyway, you have this situation where white men, these guys on these podcasts, and I've said this before, that one of the biggest problems is you got a lot of guys that get on the podcast. They weren't making any money. They were trying to find a hustle. They discover that gender war is the biggest topic because at the end of the day, I don't care what anybody says, there's always a new group of young adults and 18-year-olds and everything else that are trying to navigate relationships. And that's 50% of your existence. 50% of human existence is to literally procreate. Everything else is the other 50%. What do you want to do with your life? How you want to live? Where you want to live, right? But all of that is predicated on money. So this is the other 50%. Right? And there's no real rules when it comes to the relationship stuff, right? Like society's like, oh, you need to do this and do this and do that. And even that's breaking, but still like you could kind of like linearly track it. Relationships, you could never linearly track. And every, 20 years or so, the culture just, completely shifts. So that ends up being, a problem and new conversations come about. Like example, men in the past, they didn't have to deal with as many single mothers. And if they did deal with single mothers, the men were gainfully employed enough to cover it. Like it wasn't crushing them, right? The way that the courts were set up and all that, the way that it is now, men don't want to touch that with a 10-foot pole, especially with a bad economy. It's like, look, chick, I'm struggling out here, barely taking care of myself, and I got to take on you and a kid you had with somebody else. And then again, the stupid part for women is, all of the social media, where these women have shown their ass. They've shown what they really think of men that have done right by them. There's nothing stupider than women who decide that they're going to get on the microphone, get on the internet, and talk badly about a man who did for them. That is the dumbest thing any woman or any group of women can do. But hey, y'all did it. You're sitting there and you're just like, God damn, yeah, he did this and I was living with him and me and my daughter and da 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 da, and I didn't like that nigga. And you're like, God damn, and he was doing for you and you he's just nothing. You know what I mean? They don't even have sense to put him on a pedestal. It's just crazy. So you see the other young men that are, in the come ups and they see the shit and they're like, oh, hell no. We done seen enough heads roll, the younger generations. They've seen enough heads roll. They've seen enough men get decapitated. They've seen enough men get financially ruined. And women are sitting around talking about, they don't want to marry us. They don't want to marry us. It's the stupidest shit in the world. All the fucking bones and carcasses we see laying around. No, thank you. No, ma'am. No, thank you. But the thing that Cap, really pointed out about, and this was like a couple weeks ago when we were talking about it, about Trump, I know Trump is trying to stay away from 2025, but the fact that the Republicans put out this extreme document, of like Christianity and we want to put women back in the kitchens and traditional marriage and traditional, and it's like I don't think most people have a particular problem with like traditional marriage, but again, patriarchy is predicated on what the fuck is going on in the economy. If you got a kick-ass economy, you're going to see a lot of marriages and you're going to see a lot of patriarchy going on. Okay? If the economy is going poorly, right, you're going to see a whole bunch of single mothers. But again, since, all you idiot Christians and other conservative folks always want to make it about behavior because you don't really want it to cost you anything. You don't really want to have to create policies and do things that are actually supportive of families, right? With like actual tangible benefits and whatnot. You want to say that, society is collapsing because of wokeness and broken this and broken that, right? Completely ignoring the fact that it's directly tied to the type of wages people are making. It's like, I don't know why people ignore that. They talk about, make America great again, go back to the 1950s. And again, 1950s was a post-World War II economy. Everywhere else in the world was pretty much bombed or not developed, right? Right. Europe had to rebuild. Asia had to, establish itself, right? And it wasn't until the 1980s to where, you really started to see shit fall off, for America. And it was a slow transition, deindustrialization, right? The Japanese cars coming in, right? It was all this whole like slow transition. And Reagan getting rid of the unions. And then at the same time, you see families declining, right? You can sprinkle feminism in there as well. But at the end of the day, the core of families falling apart is whether daddy is gainfully employed or not. If daddy's not gainfully employed, there's essentially no reason for the woman to submit. I think the biggest mistake that conservatives make and the religious people make is they assume what women want to do. They assume what women want to get with. And this is where the big divide comes in, politically for the right, because they've split their base with the radical 2025 and, trying to take away abortion rights from women. Now, like I said, I don't particularly care about abortion rights, right? Because there's no women I intend on, getting pregnant that I don't want to get pregnant. There's a whole conversation that I've had before about women and sex. I'm not going to argue with women who want to fight for the right to be sexually irresponsible. They can look like idiots, doing that shit, right? But I still understand that, once you give people rights, you're not going to be able to take them away. It's the same way that freaking the people in the UK feel about the guns and, because they didn't grow up with the Second Amendment, right? Same way people in, New York or California or whatever, they feel about guns because they didn't grow up with it. When you grow up with something and you have something and it's a part of your way of life and then you try to take it away, people are going to fight. They're going to fight you. They're going to push back. And the same thing goes, for abortion. And not only that, again, like I said, with the 2025 project, to sit there and talk about we want Judeo-Christian families, and then we're gonna end Roe v. Wade, and we're gonna stop white women from having abortions, but then you have nothing in there that supports men being gainfully employed. It's the dumbest thing ever. You got nothing in there. Literally, you have in there that you want to be able to make the formation of unions harder. And unions are there to what? Fight against the corporations for wages for the employees so that they can what? Live their life and support their family. And I'm like, it's just such a contradiction. It's just literally, hey, what you trying to do here? Oh, we want to have, stronger traditional Judeo-Christian families. Okay, where's the gainful employment? Oh, no, we're actually dismantling all of that. And we're flooding the country with immigrants because we want cheap labor. Both parties want cheap labor. Both parties serve their billionaire overlords. They do not serve the people. Okay, everybody's running around thinking it's such a two-party system. It ain't as much a two-party system as you think it is. And as I've said before, they divide people up on all these hot button issues, and they try to stay as far away from the money as possible. Notice you haven't heard a policy from freaking Kamala Harris or Donald Trump. There is no policy on Kamala Harris's, what's today? What's today? The 8th, the 9th? There is no policy on Kamala Harris's website. Okay? Donald Trump doesn't say anything about what his policies are. All you hear is, Kamala Harris is a very bad person. She's terrible. She's bad for this country. I'm a better golfer than Joe Biden. Frivolous nonsense, bullshit. Contradictions within their own sentence. 1 minute it's, yes, black men, you don't need to vote for Kamala Harris because Kamala Harris was out there. She was locking niggas up left and right in California. Then turns right around 30 seconds later and says, and Kamala Harris is, she's for, she's weak laws and she lets the chaos just unfold and she's a weak prosecutor and she ain't arresting and charging nobody. And I'm like, huh? You just got finished saying she was locking niggas up. Now all of a sudden, Kamala Harris is weak on crime. Like, these are the smartest people that America has. This is white supremacy. This is the best. This is the best that white people have to offer. And they got the audacity to sit there and talk about, I'm smarter. Okay. We're super intelligent. Okay. Like, fuck out of here. Like, just garbage. But anyway, they've essentially, with this whole, what you end up doing is you end up, when you start the manosphere, when it comes to these, white conservatives, if no women qualify, right, then don't expect them to vote for you. They're all fat. They're all single moms. They're all ugly. They're all too old. They're all like, there's nothing in there, right? There's nothing in there. Like the thumbnails on the last video I did, right? Notice how the white women are like attractive and whatnot, right? That's AI. I just typed in, give me a family from the 1950s, voila, bam, and it came up with that image. And it are always, attractive white women and whatnot. Okay, so what happens with the ugly ones? See, the whole problem with the conservative angle, and I got my problems with liberals, so, don't jump up and down. But the problem with the conservatives is their shit's too rigid. They don't leave any room, any space. Like, if you're not a Judeo-Christian and conservative, and they talk all this shit about personal hard work and personal responsibility, but I'm like, that has nothing to do with what you're actually paying a person. There's supposed to be an actual fixed dollar amount that is attached to being personally responsible and engaging in hard work that allows you to, at the very least, be able to take care of a family. I don't know what type of wages these folks are talking about when they talk about hard work and personal responsibility, right? Everybody has the same 8 hours out of a day that they work typically. And clearly we know that some people, just, by their expertise or what they do, they make substantially more in that 8 hour period than other people do, right? This is the way, the way of capitalism. Freaking, everybody's bitching about the food costs going up and whatnot. If they didn't let Mexicans or Hondurans or any of these people from Central America that are working on the chicken farms and the pig farms and the cow farms, slaughtering the animals and whatnot, your cost of food would go up even higher. They pay those people next to nothing, based on, what Americans think is nothing. All right. But it keeps the cost down. And there's a whole bunch of those jobs that Americans ain't really trying to look. They're not trying to do that. They're not trying to work in a slaughterhouse on a pig farm. They're not trying to go over there and work, at Tyson Nuggets. They're not trying to do that. They want cushy jobs and white collar jobs or, technical jobs, right? They want those type of jobs. They don't want, the grunt work, and there needs to be a conversation about, what should the grunt work be paid? Because these are the people that keep, society functioning. Like I said, next time you get on the turnpike or get on the highway, look at the number of trucks. Next time a truck is blocking your view and you can't see the exit, think about the man that's sitting behind the wheel of that truck, whether it's got petroleum on it or whether it's got mounds of dirt or whatever other chemical compound, or whether it's a box truck with, Amazon goods on it or freaking, shit for Walmart, furniture, whatever the hell it may be on the side of that truck, food for the grocery stores. If all those men said, fuck it, think about how this country would come to a screeching halt. But yet everybody looks at those men and acts like they're fucking invisible. And I'm primarily talking to you, ladies. The men are just as bad with this as well. But you all are worse when it comes to how dismissive you are when it comes to the men that keep society going. And I'm like, and y'all just run around talking like you're entitled to shit. And this has been an ongoing problem. But anyway, getting back to that Project 2025 and when you dismissed a whole population of people, like, in other words, what's happened now is you have more people that don't fit into the conservative ideal than people who do fit into it. You're outnumbered. Conservatives are outnumbered. And honestly, when you really want to talk about it, it's because the main problem with conservatives is conservatives don't have any compassion. Okay, they it's like it's very weird, with the way, like, it's like if you're conservatives narrowly think they want to talk about Jesus and everything, but they narrowly operate from the standpoint of, being a upper middle class white male that has generational wealth. And from that standpoint, right, and they're trying to preserve their own wealth, but from that standpoint, that's how they go out into the world, completely ignoring the fact that most people don't live like that. Even when it comes to white people, they don't live like that. They didn't come from that. And they're not doing anything to support the type of family formation that they want, which cost money. If there were more marriages, if there were more intact homes, which again goes directly back to paying men more money, because men typically don't get married unless they're gainfully employed. When the man is like, yeah, I'm feeling good, I'm making money, I saved up, I just bought a house, blah, 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 blah. Then they're like, I'm looking for a wife. Not a moment sooner. So if you want to have more conservative men and conservative families, you got to share the wealth. Plain and simple. You got to share the motherfucking wealth. But they don't do that. And then you get into this oh, we say we're about that, but we're not about that. But then we got stocks in the prison industrial complex because all the single moms that are being formed are going to have a bunch of badass sons that are going to fall into the trap of, engaging in criminal activity. And then we use, the law enforcement and tough on crime to gain more and win more elections and arrest more people and throw more men in jail, and then they forcibly extract labor from those men in jail through convict leasing, and which again, many of those men, now they're legally barred, from gainful employment, because we all know if you got a felony, there's a whole after you quote unquote serve your debt to society, there's a whole other aspect of, you can't vote, and you lose your Second Amendment rights, and you're not able to, rent property, and you're not able to, basically navigate, as a fully recognized citizen. There's a whole bunch of stuff that you're not able to do if you've been, convicted of a felony. So you're like, okay, adding more people to not being able to fit into the nuclear family, married, got it together and whatnot. Like, it just, white men somehow magically think, these conservative white men, they magically think that they can literally be 10, 20% of the population, whatever the number is, and that they can have 80% of people that are outside of that space that they have defined, and that they're going to get their way when so many people don't fit into that. You got people that even now don't fit into it, but they aspire to it. There's a lot of poor ass white people that they aspire, to being, an upper middle class, white conservatives, but they're not. And they don't even realize they're voting against their own economic interest. You see? But what the conservatives basically are dealing with now, and this probably will contribute to a major realignment of politics, okay, which means, there's going to be a shift in terms of what being on the left actually means and what being on the right actually means. Because the left's got their own problems. All the LGBTQ shit, even when I'm about to read, I had to pull this up because somebody said something. It's only 5 pages. I'm gonna sit there and try to breeze through it because, somebody brought up the whole. They were like, me not being monetized and they're suppressing my channel. Oh hell yeah, they're suppressing my channel. But I'm fine where I am, because I saw a couple months back they had the whole thing with MTR, and they had I don't know who was on there. I don't know if it was Better Bachelor. There's a bunch of Fresh and Fit was definitely on the list. They had this like Homeland Security type of the Manosphere, listing. MTR's got the video. If you go over there, he's got the video, talking about whether it's male identity extremist or male supremacy, right? And I'm like, yeah, see, that's a problem. That's a problem. And they're trying to, they're trying to shut it down because, I mean, hell, what the Manosphere is talking about isn't conducive to marriage, but it is male expressed grievances. And anybody, I don't get any society that basically shuns its men. Granted, I get the concept that if the men are weak, the society is easier to control. But the problem is when you need them, you need men. And when you need the men to do something or do for the society, they're incapable of it. And again, it's like when you get to a point, like if people, it's what we talk about when we talk about prolonged exposure to poverty. Okay. Being in prolonged exposure to poverty changes the culture. Okay, poverty in and of itself, the conditions of poverty, the culture that grows out of that, it begins to grow its own legs. Okay, it's just like when you have somebody puts an acorn in your front yard and plants a little tree and whatnot. And it's like, yeah, if that tree grows too big, even if you cut down the tree, you got a fucking big ass stump there. And now you gotta go and you gotta chop up the stump and you gotta dig up the stump, and then the roots are shooting out all over the place, all across your lawn and whatnot. Like, so cutting down the tree isn't going to fix the problem. And that's what ends up happening. And whenever we end up in these discussions of, what do we do with the blacks? What do we do? I'm like, again, America has the black people it deserves. And in a minute, America is about to have the white people it deserves. Okay. You cannot sit there and have, a society or a situation where you just ignore men, the most productive a part of your population, the ones that do the building, the maintaining, and the defending of the physical infrastructure. You can't shun them out. And then at the 11th hour, oh, we need men to be men again. Like, it's like, no, they're off. Again, you stuffed them in prison because you wanted to, get more money from all your stocks in the prison industrial complex. If it ain't the military industrial complex, it's the prison industrial complex. So you done lock them up, they're dysfunctional. So now you just have these, it's just like America becomes one big fat Ponzi scheme, right? Because you're not actually producing anything. You don't have anything productive. All you're doing is taking away from the dwindling population of people who are actually gainfully employed, taking taxes away from them, taking half of those taxes, stuffing it in your pocket as the facilitator, right? And then you're using that to basically shun and lock up and marginalize, the undesirable class of your society. And I'm like, how long do you think that shit is going to last before everything breaks? And when everything breaks, you know what you end up with? You end up with insurrection. Okay? You end up with politicians with heads on sticks. That's what you end up with. Like you saw with, who was the governor? Whitmer? Who was the governor up there in Michigan that they had the plot that they were going to, freaking snatch her up and all of that. You're going to see more of that type of shit. You already got like white supremacists running around trying to, blow up the power grid and everything else. You're going to see more of that shit. Okay, now, unfortunately, because what ends up happening, they end up focusing on, the reason why all this is happening is because, all these other minorities are breathing up the white man's air. And if we just purged all these non-whites, then everything would be good. I'm like, no, it wouldn't. Again, I direct you to how things were going in Europe before the age of exploration. White people were dusty ass peasants. Europe was a backwater. Europe doesn't have any fucking resources. You had tons, and I was going to do a video where I was just going to go through the number of the number of revolts, peasant revolts that they had in Europe. They had them in Germany, they had them in France, they had them in England. The most notable was the Wat Tyler 1381, right? So when white people have this idea, like even what's going on now in the UK, oh, we get rid of all these minorities, everything will be good. No, because white people have always had classism like a motherfucker. Okay, kings, queens, nobles, and peasants. And the vast majority of you all were, peasants or descendant of peasants. The people, if you were balling out of control in Europe, why would you fucking leave? Why would you go, oh, I'm going to America? Why would you leave and go to America? Why would you leave and go to a place that doesn't have, any, it's just wilderness and shit. And then you got to deal with the Native Americans because you're stealing their land, and you got to be, who does that? Who does that? Right? Who does that other than desperate people? Desperate people get on a boat and they don't know where they're going, and they, freaking, try to, create a new life for themselves. People that are balling out of control don't do that, right? The whole Revolutionary War is because of what? 2% tax, because the Americans wouldn't pay homage to the British, right? Because they were like, hey, it's my colony. You gotta give me money. King George at the time. So, bottom line, the real problem is white people's system of capitalism. It is a predatory system, and everybody sees it now. For the first time, you got white people that actually see how predatory the system is. There's still white people on the fence, and they're still running around, make America great again, and they got these white nationalist ideas and whatnot. But when you sit down and you actually crunch the numbers and you look at it for what it is, right? I was watching a video of a guy. He said the most brilliant thing. He was like, "Nah," and I'll add to it. He's like, "We don't need He's like, "No, we don't need $15 an hour. What we need is a currency that doesn't fucking depreciate over time." I was like, "Ooh, that's a good one. Ooh, that's a good one." I mean, you can just look at gas prices. If I talk to my parents, they talk about, what was my mother telling me? That Coca-Cola was like 5 cents. You could get a Coca-Cola for 5 cents. And then she said, I remember when gas went over $1 and everybody was freaking out. I would love to pay $1 for gas right now. So, that's, again, we have this economy, and some people would argue, and I'm not, too keen on, banking and, fractional reserve banking and all that, and lending out money and all the factors, printing of money, all the factors that cause, inflation. But, basically, the only people who are doing somewhat okay are the people who recognize that a long time ago, and they buy assets. They buy things that appreciate over time, like property values, which have gotten completely out of control, right? To offset inflation, so that whenever they decide to actually liquidate those assets, they get a higher return on investment. That's how the shit works. So they buy in stocks, they're buying properties, right? The whole thing with landlords, and that's a whole nother conversation in and of itself, because personally, I think that, there's an issue with landlords. There's an issue with billionaires. That's a whole, this video would be even longer than what it's about to be, because I got to get through these 5 pages. So anyway, let me get back to the topic. So this is March 2023, Human Rights First, Extremism, Fact Sheet, Male Supremacy and Misogyny, Mainstreaming Extremism Through Local Government. And this says, damn, I'm looking at this shit on my phone. I got to blow this up. Mainstream actors exploit public spaces and government institutions to advance extremist agendas that further male supremacy and misogyny in the United States. The growth of this ideology undermines our democracy and threatens the rights and safety of women and the LGBT community. Why do women bring up the LGBT community like whenever? Like, I don't understand why they bring that up. It's just, I know it's more of the, we need a coalition, we got to form Voltron and all that other shit, right? But I'm saying, if you have a problem with men, why do you always got to bring up the gay shit, right? I don't get that, because there's many women out there that, if they could find Prince Charming, they would want to be married. They would want to have a family, right? Like, what does gay shit have to do with that? And I say the same thing in the black community, and I know what it is. They hate patriarchy. And this is the population of quote unquote undesirables. But, like I was saying, the main issue with, I'd say, the white manosphere is the fact that it doesn't take steps towards creating or increasing the number of the population that they would find desirable, right? How many of these guys do you see saying, hey, there's too many fat, there's too many fat women, let's help these women lose weight so that we can find them desirable. We're not just going to throw them away. You don't see a whole bunch of that. You just see a whole bunch of, dismissed, or the whole Madonna whore complex of admonishing OnlyFans chicks, on, the whatever or the whatever podcast, which I always find cringe, because part of the reason why they get the OnlyFans chicks on there is because the audience, are a bunch of guys that they wish they had women that look like that, but then they got that whole Madonna whore complex thing. So there's like this sort of cathartic release that they get from watching hot women get slammed for being whores, even though if you gave them a chance with any of those women in any situation in a room somewhere, they would be fucking them. You know what I mean? Not only fucking them, they'd be trying to wife them, quiet as is kept. But, that's a whole nother conversation. Anyway, continuing. What is male supremacy and misogyny? Male supremacism is a social hierarchy which places cisgendered, my favorite word, the cisgendered heteronormative white supremacist capitalist patriarchy. The cisgendered and straight men as the superior to others and justifies their social and political control. Misogyny, a key element of male supremacy, propagates disdain and prejudice against women and perceived threats to the social order. Mainstream misogynists promote policies and laws that restrict the rights of women and LGBT community. Why do you all keep bringing up LGBT community? Whereas fringe elements endorse violence and achieve these goals. First off, why is it women act like misandry doesn't exist? Why do women act like there's no such thing as toxic femininity, right? And ways in which women weaponize the court system, weaponize family courts, weaponize custody of the children, weaponize child support, right? Destroying men that try to do the right thing. And again, like I said before, and I said this about the black matriarchy, that the goal is to get men to be productive for women's benefit without any of the social rewards, because the social rewards in and of themselves create hierarchies. They create hierarchies. It's like, oh, did you go to war? No. Okay, well, you don't get to be buried in Arlington Cemetery. Right? Imagine a regular citizen, and I wouldn't be surprised if this happened, bitching that it is their right to be buried in Arlington Cemetery, despite the fact that they didn't serve this country. Just imagine it. And again, I'll equalize it. I think that women's role as mothers is equally as important as men going out there and being productive. But I also recognize that, that there is a division of labor, and the idea of having a man go out there and he's working and she's working and whatnot. And it's like, okay, who's raising the kids? What, the lady at the daycare making 12, 13, 35 an hour? Like that's who's raising the kids. And then everybody's like, oh, why are the kids so fucked up and dysfunctional? It just I sound like Bill Burr right there. Why are they so fucked up and dysfunctional? Like, you know what I mean? Like, it just, I don't get it. I don't get it. Like, what did you think is good? Is there anything in this society that is conducive to families? Can anybody name one thing that is conducive to family formation in this society? This is where the left fucks up, because the left isn't doing anything that's conducive to family formation, and the right pretends to claim that it's doing things that are for family formation. But then again, it comes out with Project 2025, which doesn't want to pay anybody. I'm like, oh my God, man. Like, again, friggin' white supremacy, ladies and gentlemen. The superior intellect of white people and their system. Isn't it brilliant? Continuing, the United States has seen a rollback in civil liberties in favor of male supremacist ideals and the end of protections like Roe v. Wade. And here's, I gotta say this. As a black man, I gotta say this. Male supremacy doesn't have anything to do with white supremacy. Male supremacy would be male supremacy. But you know, see how they try to bring it in there, right? And this is what that's supposed to do. Is that's supposed to be a dog whistle to all the, fucking black women, Avengers, like that's what it's supposed to be. And I call bullshit on that because I'm like, no, men do have valid grievances, and you trying to just blend everything together into this, and they're white supremacists, and they're male supremacists, and they're Nazis, and Andrew Tate says he wants to date an 18-year-old, and they're pedophiles, and they're, what I'm saying? It's like they just try to tack on all this extra bullshit. And I'm like, I'm just trying to listen to the overall point, which is supposed to be that men want traditional families, and you all, you all obviously don't, right? So again, first point being made, Roe v. Wade in 2022, and the increase in AntiTrans Legislation. And I'm like, and see, this is where the people on the left fucked up. And I'm like, again, a man gets with a trans. Where are all the women that are lined up to date a dude that dates trans women? The shit that y'all advocate for, you know what I mean? And then you turn around and they're not marrying us. I don't want to marry a bitch that's trying to force man butt down my throat and then call it a vagina. Fuck out of here. No, I don't want my kids being raised with goofy ideas. See, this is where, I agree with the conservatives on that. What are you doing? What are you talking about? This is goofy shit. But see, again, I think there's a trick bag to all of this because it's a hot button issue. And if you get people distracted on the hot button issues, right? Gun control, abortion, women's rights, Syrian refugees, Mexicans coming across the border, what books are being read in school, then we never get to talking about the money. We never get to talk about men being gainfully employed and supporting their families. Right? Because I see more women online, especially if the economy's bad. Now all of a sudden all these bitches want to be stay-at-home wives now. You know what I mean? I don't want to work. I've seen a bunch of videos, acting like if they went up to heaven, they'd be like, where's that Susan B. Anthony? And they'll slap that bitch, because they're like, where are these women that fought for women's right to work? Because again, yeah, working when the economy is good for women, I'm strong and independent, and you can afford all this shit by yourself. Oh yeah, that feels good. But as soon as the economy tanks, then all of a sudden women, now y'all some fainting Victorian virgins from the 1880s and shit like that. Now all of it, where is a real man? I need a strong man. Now all of a sudden you're the bitches in Red Dead Redemption and shit. Because the economy's all fucked up. You know what I mean? But when economy was good, you had all the smoke. These niggas is bringing sand to my beach. Now all of a sudden, right? You got women, screaming about traditionalism and whatnot. Anyway, I need to just keep reading as opposed to interrupting myself. Recent legislation attacks on birth control. Again, that's where conservatives fuck up. Trans student athletes, abortion care, drag queen story hours all stem from this ideological root. The trans athlete shit, this is just the dumbest shit. That's what I'm saying. I saw that shit with the one they claim that what country were they from? Algeria, the boxer and the woman got hit once in the face by, basically it was a hermaphrodite type of chick where she got high levels of testosterone, she shouldn't even be classified as a woman. Some countries decided that they were like, no, she can't box. But in any event, there's big fuss about, is this trans and the woman got hit, and I'm like, nah. Why are men immediately coming out with the capes? Again, listen to what I'm reading. Men aren't pushing trans athletes. women are pushing trans athletes. So when they get in the head, you know what I mean? You know, have you ever seen a woman get hit by a man and it rocked her head so hard that she reevaluates her whole life? Did you see that video of the white woman that slapped? It was a blonde white woman. She slapped this white dude in the bar, and that motherfucker slapped her back, and she got slapped so hard. Not only did she fell back, then when she got up, she had to sit her ass, and she just sat there. She sat there and she reevaluated her entire existence. You know what I'm saying? I'm not gonna lie. I find that shit just so satisfying, like the chef's kiss. Because women have just gotten beyond themselves. They've been watching too much Wonder Woman or some shit. They think that they a man. I could whoop any man's ass and all this other shit. I used to be one of the dudes that would come through swooshing into the room with the cape and shit. Not no more. I've lived long enough to be no. There are not all women. I'm not an advocate for men just beating on women just because, but I'm saying there's certain women where when the stars align and a woman just so out of pocket that she totally deserves it and it happens. I mean, it's the chef's kiss. You know what I mean? She's going to jail now. You going to jail now. So you can, I mean, just, it's just so satisfying, to see. Women can wail all day, going, a man should never hit a woman. Yeah, whatever, bitch. Anyway, misogyny is a driving factor, incidents of gender-based violence, mass violence, and domestic terrorism. See how they just lumping it all together, just clusterfuck. You know what I mean? All because you men are talking about, traditional families and yes, the concern that white men have about low white birth rates, right? But it's just like they just lump it all in there. Have a history of domestic violence and misogynistic behaviors, or both, right? Male supremacist violence impacts ethnic and racial minorities disproportionately. Dragging us into the shit, and I'm like, here's what's so crazy, right? I'm like, what white women are dealing with versus what black women are dealing with are two different things. Black women complain that black men ain't even in the home. 61% of black women are mothers, and the vast 81% are, when the first child is born, are single mothers. You know what I mean? Like, black men aren't even around like that. You know what I'm saying? And yet, the problem is, it affects black women disproportionately. No, what affects black women disproportionately, I'm saying, which can come from a male, is the frustration, the overall frustration of everybody in that pot that's in poverty. Get rid of the poverty, there would, like, in other words, you get rid of the poverty, you wouldn't have the whatever the violent dynamics are going on between black men and black women. It has nothing to do with male supremacy. Like, black men just wake up like, yeah, I'm gonna slap this bitch. Like, no, that's not what's going on. No, it's poverty. It's poverty based. And really what it comes down to is the fact that there's a lot of black people that they're growing up without support systems. And it's like how I view the shit. Like, white women I've dated in the past. Okay, I break up with the white girl. Bitch, you be all right. Your daddy there. You got support system. Oh, he broke up with me, as she runs to her BMW. Like, the fuck out of here. Versus in the black community where, you got, Deshaun, he's raised by a single mother, and you got Keisha, she's raised by a single mother, right? There's no real support there. They go off together, they get an apartment together, right? And then the relationship falls apart, and then, what's going to happen with the apartment? You going to pay for that? You going to pay for that? Like, in other words, they both got their backs to the wall. Any breach is not just something that somebody can just sit there and they can eat that shit. So if Jamal cheats on Keisha, Keisha gonna go ballistic, right? Because the alternative is what? Her going back to a shitty situation. Same thing with Jamal. Jamal can't eat fucking, hey, I've been working, whatever, freaking 2 months to get these fucking Sixers tickets. And then Keisha just going up and decide like, well, I'm gonna go out with my girls tonight. He might snap, okay? Because that's not something he could just bounce back from. He can't just eat the cost. And the fact that a lot of black people can't eat the cost has a lot of black people, when they get done wrong, acting crazy. You know what I mean? That whole, crime of passion type of shit, acting crazy. Chick, she done stabbed her boyfriend to death while he was sleeping, shit, and she crying in the mug shot and everything. Yeah, it got too emotional, right? Because again, you can't get done dirty because you can't absorb it. So that's why you have disproportionate violence, domestic shit going on in the black community. Has nothing to do with black men woke up today and said, I am a Super Saiyan. Fuck out of here. Just get the fuck out of here with that bullshit. Hold on a second. Where am I at? Racial minorities. For example, the March 2020 to March 2021 of the reported 6,600 crimes against Asian Americans in the United States, the majority target women and non-binary individuals. Really? You're gonna take COVID and then put it into a non-binary? Oh my God, this is crazy. Okay. Likewise, DOJ found that the transgender individuals face greater threats if they are also a person of color. Are we supposed to be talking about women, or are we talking about transgender and non-binary LGBTQ? See what I'm saying? I mean, and not only that, how much more extreme can you get? Let's just that shit's not even conducive to life. How extremism is normalized. Key mainstream narratives. You may have heard elements of broader anti-democratic movement strategy deploy dog whistles under the guise of mainstream narratives to further policies steeped in male supremacy. 3 common mainstream narratives deployed to support male supremacy include parental rights, traditional values, and men's rights. Most people do want to get married. Most people are straight. Most people are heteronormative, cisgender. That's most people. Most people are not LGBTQ. So people who want to form nuclear families, which is most people, that's extremism. See, this is where the left gets fucking goofy. Parental rights, the narrative that advocates for little to no state or federal control over primary education and has been used since at least the 1950s as a dog whistle for discriminatory policies in schools, including in support of school segregation. Today, under the umbrella of parental rights, organizations like the national nonprofit Moms for Liberty or the Michigan organization We the Parents promote anti-LGBTQ and anti-civil rights agendas to local legislation and schools. Granted, yes, it's been used as a dog whistle, but straight parents, it should be understood that they don't want their kids to be gay. That do I need to say any more to that? Do I need to say any more to that? Oh my God, gas, because straight parents that produce children want their kids to be straight to produce children and not be indoctrinated with alphabet gang, rhetoric. Traditional values. The narratives promote patriarchal familial structures, anti-LGBTQ hate, and discriminatory laws. They keep bringing up LGBTQ. It's crazy. Laws around reproduction. While this term is used broadly by many groups, it has historically been taken up by the anti-democrat movement to argue against equality. Today, with the resurgence of Christian nationalism in mainstream spaces, traditional values are used to justify repeals on civil rights and progressive politics. Men's rights. These narratives, particularly on online forums, promote vile misogyny, including the belief that women should not have equal rights, and that rape should be legal. Where the fuck is that at? However, by offering this content alongside, I think I know what they're talking about. The whole idea that you can't violate your wife, sort of situation. And I'm not even going to get into that. There's enough women talking about how women shouldn't weaponize sex or deny sex to their husbands. I'll let the women have that discussion. I'm not going to get into that, because to me, if I was married to a woman and she didn't want to have sex with me, I'd be like, why the fuck are we together? And I would probably go out there and eventually divorce her, but I'd probably go out there and cheat. I don't got to fucking sit there and try to, violate her. I just go out there and what's she gonna? I'm like, chick, I need some toppy. You ain't, hey, what? I go out here and I can get some toppy. And I've seen, men do shit like that. Where they'll sit there and they'll get a fresh cut, put on their best suit and walk out the door, and she starts freaking out because she knows. But anyway, continuing. Networks of extremism, anti-democratic movements promoting male supremacy and misogyny. Male supremacism and misogyny underpin most anti-democratic ideologies and are explicitly and implicitly promoted throughout the broader movement. Prominent voices spread this ideology in mainstream and fringe spaces, including virtual misogynist networks. What misogynist network? I guess it would be Fresh and Fit and freaking the whatever app or whatever podcast. Violent male supremacist groups, women's organizations, and Christian national groups. Virtual misogynistic networks. The Manosphere, in quotes, is a network of online spaces, forums, blogs, social media groups, etc. that actively oppose feminism and promote misogyny and male supremacy. This includes men going their own way, the incel movement, the men's rights activists. These virtual networks promote and radicalizing red pill culture and inspire gendered violence, including mass shootings. Let me ask this question, right? There's no such thing as female supremacy. There's no such thing as misandry, right? Like, there's no such thing as women being manipulative and trying to get basically everything at men's expense. There's none of that. Because y'all start freaking out the minute that men decide that they're not going to participate. Because they're damned if they do, and they're damned if they don't. Okay, you start all these videos of women crying online and all this other shit because they thought feminism was going to be different. And then they find out that it's not. So I'm just saying, like, balance that shit out. To sit here and pretend like there's no female. I mean, you can't get any more female supremacy than the idea that men are to be productive for women and have not expect anything in return. Like, you can't get any more female supremacy than that. Men are to work for women. I mean, again, this to me, this is like, I swear it's like men need to do like what the women did in Sweden. Where I think it was Sweden where where the women went on strike. Men need to go on strike. But the crazy thing is, if men went on strike, the whole country would collapse. Police officers not going to work, ambulance drivers not going to work, freaking, just construction workers not constructioning, right? I mean, just imagine if all the men said fuck it and they just went on strike for I give it 3 days. Especially be it the fact there's only 3 days worth of food in the supermarket. I swear everything is just women are just like these victims, and they don't even stop and pause and question and be like, hey, maybe I took it too far. And the only women that really get that are women that have sons. But anyway, continuing. Violent male supremacist groups. Other male supremacist groups support a rigid gender hierarchy, such as the Proud Boys, who self-describe as Western chauvinists and, have physical chapters across the United States. This group and others like it often participate in violence directed at targets perceived as threats to the social power, including the LGBTQ community. You know what I don't like about this? Right, because there are, extreme groups out there that, like even if a true patriarchal minded man had a conversation with them, like their arguments will fall apart. It's like when men check other men, like when Kevin Samuels was talking about, black men having their finances in order and guys were going crazy and, well, Kevin said, I feel I'm a high value man because I serve the Most High. Like, no. And you got idiots out there like that. But the fact of the matter is that the feminists and people that came up with this thing that they're writing, they always want to go to like the most extreme in order to justify their point. They don't want to talk to, it's like what they won't do today, right? Back in the day, back in the 1960s, they used to sit down with, people like, what was the guy's name? They would sit down with Martin Luther King. They would sit down with Malcolm X. Who was the guy's name? Farmer. He had a debate with Malcolm X. They used to sit down with all these black intellectuals. And those comments, I mean, you can watch the videos. They're on YouTube. Very highly intellectual conversations about the civil rights movement. And then, as you all know, the famous quote from Malcolm X, where he talked about how they go and they get Lena Horne and Louis Armstrong, and they get all these celebrities, and then they go and they ask them. You got Cardi B going to talk to Joe Biden. You got, freaking Megan Thee Stallion going up there with Kamala Harris, right? They they're making a mockery of black people. They don't take black people, seriously. But the thing is again, they don't want to have the conversations that they don't want to have with the people that could actually articulate what the collective position of black people, is, or what the majority position is, right? They don't want to have that conversation. No, they want to be able to control the conversation, as Nellie Fuller said, from both ends of the conversation. They want to be able to present the problem and then tell us what the solution is to the problem that they've presented us. They don't want us to articulate for ourselves what our grievances are and what our demands are. And so that's why I think you don't see any of those long form, type of, like, I don't know, freaking Thomas Sowell versus X or Muhammad Ali versus like William F. Buckley or something like that. You don't see that anymore. They don't do that. They don't sit down and have those type of, and then, show it on television. They don't do that anymore, where people would call in, you know what I mean? And, say, well, they don't do that. Everything is sensationalized and sound bites. They want to be able to control the narrative. I said this about Fox News a long time ago. They always get these coon ass black people that go up there and espouse the talking points of, Fox News. And then tell you that, oh, this is a good Negro. This is a good black person. The Candace Owens, Brandon Tatum type shit. That's what they do. They don't go and get the black person that actually disagrees and then can make them look like an asshole. Because if you go back and you look at the clips of Malcolm X and him debating, like, them white people, they tried it. And he made them look like an ass because they underestimated Malcolm X and they thought that they were dealing with a dumbass. And then, when he challenged them, they had nowhere to go. And that's, they don't want that anymore. So that's why you don't see that. That's why they grab the celebrities and shit like that. Same thing with like gun control. Like, you want to talk about gun control? This is how you talk about gun control. And Democrats won't do it because they want to ban all guns. But if you wanted to have an honest conversation about what laws could be passed. Now, I know a lot of the gun people are going to say, well, just just they'll say, do engage in the laws that are already on the books, right? That's what they'll say, because pretty much all of them are already on the books. But I'm saying you'll never see a Democrat say, okay, I want to get members of the gun community and Democratic legislators to come up with a bill. Y'all gonna go in this room and y'all ain't gonna come out until you come out with something. Some type of compromise. You'll never see that. No, Democrats just want, their idea of what gun control is, which is essentially no guns. Right? But there's no, it's like, why don't you ask the gun people since they're all into guns and they use guns every day, why don't you ask them what they think would be most effective that doesn't infringe on the Second Amendment right? But they never do that. They never do that. It's just, just super ultra left ban everything. So people want to always have that conversation with like the most extreme individuals. That's why Captain Solo a long time ago did that video, No Belligerence. Because everybody was dismissing us and acting like, oh, well, that's just the ghetto hood rats, or, that's just the extreme dark feminist. And it's like, no, again, mileage may vary. Everybody is not extreme that's on the bullshit. But again, they don't want to have that conversation. They don't want to sit there and actually listen to men's grievances. Like I said, I plain and simple. I had a woman arguing with, going back and forth. What did she say? She said, she said something about, the problem is the patriarchy, and we need to eliminate the patriarchy, and that's what we need to do. And I was like, okay, date down. Oh, I'm not trying to do that. Well, then how can you eliminate the patriarchy when you're trying to date hypergamously, chick? How can you date up, which means you're dating men that are ahead of you, but you don't like the idea of men being ahead of you? How does that work? How do you smash the patriarchy and then at the same time date men who make more money than you and can do more than you can do for yourself? How does that work? And no answer. No answer. You see, people they talk out of their ass. Continuing, women's organizations like Moms for Liberty use nonviolent tactics and rhetoric to push, for the same goals as the broader male supremacist movement, such as anti-LGBT community policies and exclusionary Christian patriarchal values. What's so funny is, like, okay, women's organizations like Moms for Liberty. I thought this was all about male supremacy. And here you have women's organizations that support, the idea that, again, since women want to date up, they're going to support their husbands. I guess they're just a bunch of pick-me's, a bunch of pick-meishes, right? That's what they are. Obviously that's what they're going to say. These are male-identified women, right? Because they don't want to be alone and be the crazy cat lady, and then, have to, go at, living into retirement on their own. They don't want to have to do that. They recognize that they need a man and they value men and they respect men, but they're all pick-meishes. Christian nationalist groups. These groups argue for a return to American values that include a patriarchal family and government in which women and children are submissive to men. Historically, white women have leveraged Christian nationalist narratives in anti-abortion organizing. Today, groups like the Heritage Foundation and Alliance Defending Freedom and the Family Policy Alliance push Christian nationalism as a key element in election denial. Christian nationalist pastors networks are the major drivers of this rhetoric, including Pastors for Trump, Patriot Churches, and the Black Robe Regiment. Now, like I said at the beginning of the video, that's where the 2025 people fucked up. The shit's too extreme, isolates too many people, assumes too much about what all women want to do or what all women should be doing, and, you always got to create a lane, that gives people an out that don't want to participate. I'm not saying you got to lay out the royal carpet, But you do have to have a lane for them. You can't just go in the room, as Captain Solos likes to say, go in the room, there's no food, no water, turn the lights off, and then lock the door. You can't do that. They're gonna turn on your ass like the Outcast in Division 2. Go watch some video on the Outcast in Division 2. They got left on Roosevelt Island during the pandemic in the video game, and they're highly pissed off because they were basically left and abandoned. The impact of the increased misogyny in local government, institutions, and your community. The recent growth of normalization of male supremacy and misogyny is evident in the rise of discriminatory practices in state and local government and undermines public safety and our democracy. These policies include an increase in anti-LGBTQ policies, attacks on women's rights, attacks on diversity in education settings, and an increase in hate-fueled violence directed at women and the LGBT community. All that was a mouthful. Increased anti-LGBT community sentiment and policies, efforts to isolate and demonize LGBTQ persons are core to the male supremacist movement and are eroding the civil rights of this community. Florida's Don't Say Gay law or dozens of anti-trans bills proposed and passed in Texas are examples of the movement's attempt to alienate and terrorize this community. Let me ask a question, right? Over the last, 10 years or so, do you think that there's been more of an attack on LGBT community or more an attack on straight people for being straight? In particular, straight men. That there's somehow a problem with straight men being straight. Yeah, right? And and even the whole trans thing. You know what's so crazy about the trans? Who do trans women want to date? Who do they want to date? Do they want to date other trans people? 9 times out of 10? No. They want to date heteronormative cisgendered men. Right? How ironic is that? Right? So it's funny how it's not understood that a lot of what you see is a pushback in conjunction with a fucked up economy, in conjunction with the frustration of men not being able to get their lives started. And then you get the cultural stuff that comes on top of it, which just is like a nail in the coffin. It's like, we're not going to pay you. You're not going to be able to, start your life. You're not going to be able to buy a house. You know what I mean? Oh, and here's some man butt. You know what I mean? Like that would make anybody fucking snap. But, let them tell it. It's the trans people. That's where the problem is. Not because y'all go out here and have parades that involve children, and not because you all go out here and you have storybook a time that involves children. It's like you go out there you and try to provoke people. Like, seriously speaking, like, there's so many people that are straight that don't give a fuck about you being gay. Don't give a fuck about you being fucking trans. They really don't give a shit. They just don't want it in their face, and no, they don't value it the same way that they value themselves and their identity. You know what I mean? It's like that would be like a Christian going to Afghanistan and then walking into a mosque and then telling them that they have to recognize Jesus Christ as king or some shit like that. Like, get out of here. This is not your space, to do that. And again, it reminds me of the fucking Second Amendment people running around and, I'm not free until I can walk into a Starbucks with a bazooka on my back, right? And again, just, I remember I had to explain this to Captain Solo with the whole Eldridge Cleaver Cold on Ice when he talked about, when I'm touching a white woman, I'm touching freedom. When I'm touching a black woman, I'm touching slavery. And I had to compare it to the Second Amendment shit. I'm like, I don't think Eldridge Cleaver really wanted a white woman. No. What he wanted was to be able, what he was saying is, as a black man, he's not free until he can have a white woman in his arm and have white men not say shit or be able to do shit. And low key, conceptually, I got to agree with his position, right? Because if you're being punished anytime you step outside of a box, then technically speaking, you're not free. He's not wrong in that statement, right? I understand it doesn't look cool because it's like you're saying like, oh, the black woman's not good, but that's not really what he was saying. What he was saying is that I should be able to go to a park and have a white woman on my arm and not have these white boys say anything to me. It's no different than the guys that go out here with the cameras, and there's, I don't need to show you my ID, officer. The Terry v. Ohio. Am I being detained? Am I being detained? Do you suspect me of a crime? Okay, then. No, actually, officer, I can record you. I can record. What's your badge number, officer? Okay, well, I guess I'm free to go then. Right? Clearly, I'm fishing with my AR-15 strapped to my back in Florida. You see me with my fishing pole. You see me with my fishing pole. Just so you know, Florida has a real goofy law that if you're fishing, it's the only time that you can open carry. So what you see in Florida, and you'll see them, they got the AR-15s on their back, and they got a fishing pole, knowing damn well they ain't fishing. But they can say, I'm on my way to go fishing. So I'm walking to the lake to go fishing. So they'll just be walking down the street with their AR-15 backs on their back, fishing license in their pocket, and a fishing rod, and the cops can't do shit. Because they hate the fact that, well, actually, Florida got rid of, they actually do have open carry now, which I still think you need to get your permit. But that's what the way it was for a long time in Florida. That you had to have a permit and your gun had to be concealed. You couldn't open carry in Florida. I think the rule now might be, I think you still can't open carry, but you have to have, you don't have to have a permit to carry a gun. But you can't open carry, meaning like openly display the gun. They don't like that. And I don't blame them because I think open carry is tactically stupid, but that's just me. That's my thoughts on it. Hold on a second. And where am I at now? Increase everything LGBT, tax on women. Okay. Wait, did I move this thing? I think I did. Increase anti-LGBT sentiments. Okay, don't say gay. I already talked about that. Attacks on women's rights and reproductive rights, male supremacy, misogyny, undergird the anti-abortion movement, which was born out of faith-based arguments, but from efforts to restrict and control women's role in society, which is a particular emphasis on black women and immigrants today. This extremism drives many state policies that restrict access to reproductive health care and disproportionately affect minorities. See, they're trying to bring black people into this conversation again. Like, what does attack on women's rights and reproductive? No, they don't give a fuck about black women getting abortions. White men give a fuck about white women getting abortions because the white population is in decline. And it's largely in decline because the white elites are hoarding all the goddamn wealth. And they're not allowing young white people to get themselves established enough to feel financially secure enough to start families. That's what the fuck it's about. You know what I mean? See, I can't think. See, y'all got to. I'm telling. I don't know who I'm saying this to, but I'm like, I'm kind of saying this to black women. I'm like, y'all got to check these white hoes about like trying to do the fucking sleight of hand bullshit, bringing you in. They didn't give a fuck about you yesterday. Now all of a sudden, oh, where do you care about black women? What's going on with our sisters and shit like that? While they live in the burbs and you live in the ghetto. Like, get the fuck out of here. Where is Susie got your back at the corporate office? Fuck out of here. Like, just get the fuck out of here. Attacks on educational institutions. Education has long been a background for civil rights and the male supremacism. Today, groups like Moms for Liberty advocate for elected officials who in turn support their efforts to ban books and alter school curriculums. Depends on the book and depends on what's in the book. And depends on what grade is there. I'm not jumping up and down about that shit because I definitely think that there are certain books that are inappropriate for children at particular ages. You know what I mean? It's, oh, we're going to read the gay BCs today. Get the fuck out of here. Hate-fueled attacks. Misogyny is now a driver in many forms of violence, which has led some states to add hate crime categories relevant to gender. According to the DOJ stats, hate crimes against gender nonconforming individuals increased by 587% between 2013 and 2019, and in 2021, over 20% of reported incidents stemmed from bias against sexual orientation, gender, and gender identity. Notice how this is sounding like it's way more about LGBTQ community than it is about women and their problem with the patriarchy and misogyny. Not to mention the fact that this is what I said about the manipulation of percentages, right? Non-conforming individuals increased by 587%. I hate when people use percentages over 100%, but I get it. But in any event, because it's basically like it's a multiple of like 100%. But if you go over to the FBI and you look at the stats, the number one group of people who have acts of hate crimes against them, and it's not even close, are African Americans, African Americans, African Americans. It's not Asians. It's not the little hats. It's not women. It's not the LGBT community. It's not Latinos. It's African Americans, and it's been consistently African Americans. Hate crimes against African Americans are at the top. I don't want to hear about anybody else talking about our shit is going up 587%. Based off of what? Based off of what numbers? What numbers? You know what I mean? It's like you go from one person being attacked to 10 people being attacked. And the attacks on LGBT has gone up 10 times. It's 10 times the amount of attacks. It's only 10 people being attacked. Where black people that are being attacked with hate crimes is in the thousands. It's in the thousands. Every year. See, this is how they come through when they try to hack. I'm telling you, black people, y'all gotta police y'all shit. They try to come through. They try to piggyback off of us and then springboard, boing. They try to springboard off of us, and then use us. And then at the end of the day, as we've all seen, which is the problem we have with the Democratic Party, when we talk about tangibles, we don't get anything. We don't get crime bills. We don't get or hate crime bills, right? We don't get freaking resources allocated to us. Oh, Asian community, what you need. You got Trump up there bragging about, how much money he's throwing at Israel and shit like that. Like, I'm like, yo, this is crazy. This is crazy, taking U.S. tax dollars and just throwing it at Israel. Attacks on, where's this at? Hate-fueled attack, yeah. Attacks on democracy. The January 6th attack on the Capitol was the result of many overlapping factors, including a rise in Christian nationalism, which has helped mainstream male supremacist and anti-democratic values. Likewise, what does January 6th have to do with fucking male supremacy against women? Recent threats to women in political power, such as the attempted abduction of Michigan Governor Gretchen Whitmer, stem from the desire to maintain white male power in public institutions. No, they attacked. And see, this is what I hate about women in positions of power, because when women in positions of power, right? When men are in positions of power and men get attacked by other men, right? The whole thing, like even in Europe, right? They didn't like somebody. What would they do? Tar and feather them, drag them out the house, tar and feather them, right? That was a thing, right? When men have problems with other men and they put the whoop ass on other men that are in positions of power and have insurrections and everything else, like the Bacon's Rebellion and a whole bunch of other revolts, you name it, the revolt, the Wat Tyler Revolt of 1381, all that shit, right? People just see it as a revolt. When they on that Braveheart shit, Northern Ireland versus, the fucking, the United Kingdom and shit like that, right? When it's male on male violence, there's no sexism in there. It's you're in a position of power and I don't like what you're doing. And somehow when women get in a position of power and then they do something that people don't like, and then those people bring them the smoke, then all of a sudden women want to make it about, oh, it's because she's a woman. No, it's not because she's a woman. It's because they didn't like the fucking mask mandate. Because white people are not used to being told what the fuck to do. And they can't handle that shit. When you tell white people that they can't walk and go to and fro here and there, yeah, white people lose their shit. Because they're not used to having, restriction or being restricted of freedom of movement. That's what that shit was all about. But to try to make it about, it's because she was a woman. No, it was because they didn't like what she was doing. And if it was somebody else, that it could have been a Democrat. I mean, but didn't they have the shit where the guy shot at somebody at a baseball game? Like I don't know if the person was Republican or Democrat, but one of the politicians got shot at a baseball game or something like that. They were at like a little league game for their son or something, and somebody shot at it, or maybe the politicians were playing baseball with each other. I don't fucking know. But I remember when that happened. Yeah, like I'm saying, like, and that's another thing here. We can use Donald Trump. Wasn't Donald Trump just shot at? Right? So if you have a bunch of militia people that decided they're gonna go and attack the government, I'm like, what is the difference? Right? Donald Trump clearly didn't get any privileges because he's a male when he's got bullets whizzing past his fucking head. Right? But again, where's this? Likewise, recent threats to women to political power, such as the attempted abduction of Michigan Governor Gretchen Whitmer, stem from the desire to retain white male power in public institutions. Is that what the shooter was trying to do when he was shooting at Trump? He was trying to maintain white male power, shooting at another white man. White male on white male violence. Like, this is why I can't stand women sometimes. They always try to make shit about them and always try to make it about, it's because she's a woman. It's because they tried to abduct her. And how many presidents has the United States that have had either attempted assassinations or assassinations? I'm pretty sure all of them were male. Where's the male privilege in that shit? Fuck out of here. God damn, these people are annoying. Take action. How can you respond to extremism? Reject the mainstream and extremist narratives. We must name hate when we see it and refuse to let the purveyors whitewash extremism and monopolize public discourse. Dog whistles such as parental rights, traditional values, or men's rights, mainstream misogyny, and male supremacy. Whether you see it online, in your community, or among elected officials, call the rhetoric out for what it is: deliberate fear-mongering and disinformation. For specific ideas about how to intervene online and in person, consider bystander training. Get involved in your community. A vibrant democracy represents all of its citizens and requires your participation. At the local level, that means getting involved with school boards, city councils, town halls, and other elements of government, such as elections administration, express solidarity with communities that are under attack and join events and uplift their voices. We all have a role to play to ensure all members of our community have equal rights, except for heteronormative cisgendered males. Support inclusive policies and reject discriminatory practices. Advocate for policies that support women and the LGBT community. What about the men though? What about straight men? Are we supporting them in any way? Making your voice heard at the state and federal level to support an inclusive policies, unless you're a straight male, such as Equality Act and the opposition to bigoted policies such as those undermining trans rights or preventing trans youth from using public services or resources. So basically, the only men that are deserving of protection are men that want to be women. That's what I'm getting from all of this. That's what I'm getting. So, and we got some definitions at the bottom. Let's see what this says. End notes. Red pilling, a term derived from 1999 film The Matrix, describes the so-called experience participants in these spaces have when they become aware of the alleged danger feminism poses for men and society as a whole. Adherents to this movement claim any social privilege based on their gender and or race and sexuality as false and used to control them. Likewise, being black-pilled describes a more overtly misogynistic belief that being an incel is genetically predetermined, that only an overhaul of the social structure will provide them access to a sexual partner, and the suicide or mass violence is a viable option to attain these goals. Now, when it comes to the black pill, it's like the black pill is extreme. The black pill, at the end of the day, the sexual markets are always going to be a competition. The economy and, not paying men is definitely a problem. Men definitely need to be more economically viable. And I think that alone would reduce much of the stratification that you see, or the pre-selection bias that women have, or the unbalanced, if you go over there on what's his YouTube channel, Ho Math, he points this out all the time. You got 10 men, 10 women, and, women only want the top 20% of dudes. That's a complete imbalance, in the society, only furthered by social media. So unless you want society to collapse, you definitely have to make men more economically viable. As it pertains to genetics and shit like that, I don't know what to say about that, because the thing that I don't get about the red pill, the black pill guys, they'll sit there and they'll boo-hoo on, men that are not attractive because it's genetically predetermined. And I'm like, and what about the women that are unattractive and it's genetically predetermined? This is where you end up with, and I got to be careful because people don't pick their genetics, but it's like, there are ways that you can improve yourself. But it's just like the dude that went and shot up the Dollar General in Florida, and he was talking all this white supremacist shit. And I'm like, you a fat fucker. You know what I'm saying? There's no reason for you to be fat like that. You know what I mean? You can, work out, exercise, diet. There's a whole bunch of stuff. The problem I have with these guys is they don't even try. They don't even try to, quote unquote, look smacks. They don't even try to elevate themselves. They just go boo-hoo. And then they sit at home and sulk, in their echo chambers. Then, that's the problem, that I have. When I was 16, I decided to go to the gym. And at 16, I was, 185 pounds. And now I'm over 300 pounds. And most of that is muscle. Because everywhere I go, man, you play for the Eagles? You know what I mean? I got to play for some sports team, or I'm a retired football player. I mean, you name it. Man, what type of numbers was you putting up? All that shit. I just work out. I worked out. I got reaction from the women. I liked it. I continued to work out. And now, at my age, it's about health, because I don't want to end up like Kevin Samuels. So it's about, maintaining your health. And hell, if you want to sit there and you want to mess with younger women and shit like that, you got to look good. Ooh, zaddy. You got to be, I'm in the zaddy territory now. I got to be a good looking zaddy. You know what I mean? But you got to take care of yourself. It's funny. I got this. Let's see if I got this damn. I don't know if y'all can hear that. I got this freaking bike I got to put together. This aerobic bike because I'm trying to cut down on time I spend at the fucking gym. Sometimes I just want to get on the bike and burn a couple calories, and that's it. I don't feel like lifting weights. Sometimes I'm too sore to do that shit. But I got this aerobic bike. I haven't even opened the box. Shit's heavy as hell. But I gotta put it together. Might go to Harbor Freight and give me some tools and put it together. But yeah. Yeah, I mean, I'm done with this video. I just, had to say all that. It just, I don't know how the world just got so goofy, man. It's just goofy. There's no real conversations. We do need to have more of the centrist people, in these conversations. And I don't care what your position is. I'm like, make your shit make sense. Make your shit make sense, bitch ass nigga. Make your shit make sense. And seriously, that's what we need. I'm open to whatever ideas people want to throw out there. But your shit, needs to be, fair and equitable, and it needs to make sense. I'm not against competition, everything. One of the things I pick up about white people is they always try to make it like there doesn't, in other words, they only like competition when they're winning. And whenever they talk about meritocracy, they always position themselves as the standard within that meritocracy, even though you have people out here who are surpassing them. You see, and again, like Jared Taylor slipped up and said, what white people want to give up power? Right? I'm like, oh, you trying to maintain power? Oh, well, we don't have to have a discussion about meritocracy, my man. I'm like, meritocracy is out the door the minute that you say you're trying to maintain power. And so you gotta recognize the trick bag when these people come through and they start talking about meritocracy and personal responsibility. No, they want to maintain power. They're not just going to sit there and be like, oh, black guy, you beat me fair and square. No, they're going to do like they always do, sabotage, burn down, destroy, right? I mean, what would the black community look like if all the black communities that had thriving business districts were not purged off of the map? This is, again, leading us right into the reparations conversation, but that's a whole nother conversation. But I'm just saying, I'm always mindful of that. Like, I don't mind, working with people to come up with a plan. It needs to start with some goddamn money, access to capital, gainful employment, and then we can have a discussion. Anything else short of that, I'm like, nah, motherfucker, you just trying to maintain your position. You trying to maintain power. You want to have it to where you got yours, but fuck everybody else. Yeah, you can kiss my ass on that shit. Let this motherfucker burn down. That's why as African Americans, even though we're on the same burning ship as white people, we've been next to the fire a lot longer than they have. So I don't have any issue letting this shit burn, more than it's already burning. You know what I mean? Because I'm like, nah. You need to feel the shit. Because when this shit is over, if we get through this, I need you to remember, how hot that motherfucking fire is the next time you think it's okay to put our asses right next to the fucking fire. So, right now, white men, they struggling and, they in their feelings and shit like that. That's why I keep telling y'all need to get with these power tools and stop fucking around, because they feeling froggy right now. Just like that shit that, the Vice show posted about that black chick being followed into actually the white dude lived there too, but he was just rabid white supremacists, all type of nigga this, nigga that. You know what I mean? Like, I'm just like, yeah, see, he got the Trump t-shirt on and you out there lacking. I got a whole video talking about that. I made that earlier while I was driving, but yeah, I'm just saying, yeah. So anyway, I'm done with this video. That's my video, SWPL. Don't forget to comment, share, like, and subscribe.